Hello and welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on November 26, 2020. Happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends and audience. Hopefully everyone have a good and happy and safe Thanksgiving. No big parties happening, but a lot of people I heard are doing the Thanksgiving dinner and partying over Zoom, which it not really my thing, but you know, hey, we all got to do what make us feel a little bit better, and I guess being able to hear each other, see each other, eat and drink over Zoom is better than nothing at all. Uh, for me, I much rather just sit down with a good meal and pay attention to a good book, a good movie, or talk to my girlfriend on the phone. But hey, like I said, that's just me. And on top of that, Canadian Thanksgiving has long passed. Well, I mean, not long past, it's just last month. And I know I'm rambling a little bit. Anyway, back to Toy Thursday action figure review show and tell of the day. And who is this guy in front of the camera? Now, if you recognize him, then I will say congratulations, you are on almost the same geeky level as me because I imagine most people don't know who this guy is. This is an interesting thing about doing action figure review because I know that when I stick someone like Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man, or Captain America, or even Thundercat, or He-Man from Master of the Universe, or Ninja Turtle, any of those characters, I can stick their heroes or supporting characters or villains, and for the most part, people will recognize them or have a good inclination. And hey, I think I've seen that guy before. But when you come to someone like Kodo Khan, the guy you're looking at in front of the camera, Kodo Khan, most people wouldn't know it unless you are a fan of Mortal Kombat. And then on top of that, you have to be a fan of Mortal Kombat in the more modern uh, chronology, because Kodo Khan is a new character, or at least relatively new, in Mortal Kombat. I don't really know a lot about the character, and I am not really a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. So I'm not going to attempt to try to unravel his very complicated background story for you. Let me give you an abbreviated version, and those of you who know better and can give more details, feel free to share in the comment section. But this is my understanding of the character, who the Kodo Khan is. In the beginning of Mortal Kombat, there was the war going on between the outworld. It's like this alien world with magic and special abilities and demonic creatures and beings, and Earth. Earth, like this green planet that seems to be always be the target of invading forces. So Outworld and Earth are going to war with each other, and because of some ancient uh, rights, ancient rules set down by the gods, they couldn't just go and slaughter the heck out of each other in an all-out war. So they did this in a tournament, like a martial arts championship fashion. In each world, the outworld and the earth will send their own champion, and whichever side won the tournament, if Earth won, then Outworld have to stop trying to invade Earth. And if Outworld's champion was to win, then Earth would get taken over. Yada yada yada. Although sometimes the rule didn't apply, and then in the end they discarded the rule anyway. So it's all complicated nonsense. But again, no one really expected fighting game, combative video game stories to really make sense. They were just there. So, in the beginning, there's Outworld and Earth going to war, and the Outworld Emperor was this big evil dude named Shao Kahn. I don't know why an Outworld Emperor had named that like a Mongolian, but anyway, he didn't look Mongolian, but he sure had a name that sounded like Mongolian, Shao Kahn. Um, and long story short, there were a lot of battles, and then eventually Shao Kahn was defeated, and his daughter Melina took over the throne, and Melina turned out to be even worse than her dad. Shao Kahn was brutal. Shao Kahn was very uh, warlike, but at least he did a lot of good things for his people. He ruled Outworld with an iron fist, but his people prospered. He conquered many other worlds. He did his people proud. His daughter Melina seemed to just want to be cruel to people. She was very strict and she had a lot of brutal rules, but she didn't really do anything on top of that. So, a lot of Shao Kahn's old generals and military advisors started to think, well, we are being ruled by this queen that is really no good. Maybe we should try to have an insurrection and get rid of her. One of those military generals was Kodo. Now, Kodo's background is a little bit more convoluted. He was like the prince of another race, and then he went to Earth and was worshipped as a god on Earth, and then he went to Outworld and served under Shao Kahn. It's like a lot of complicated political nonsense that I don't really understand. But anyway, Kodo eventually got rid of Melina and became the new Khan, the new emperor of Outworld. But I seem to remember that in the storyline he got deposed and thrown out of there himself and lost power in the next Mortal Kombat game. But I don't, like I said, it's all really complicated. So anyway, it's just long story short, Kodo Khan is the new emperor of Outworld. Supposedly, Outworld was the bad guy and Earth was the good guy. But Kodo Khan, being a very noble warrior, very honorable and noble warrior, you can't really think of him as a bad guy because in the video game he comes across as this very proud warrior emperor that just want to do good things for his people. He didn't really do the whole I want to invade Earth thing. He mostly was defending himself against other invasions like from the demon world or whatever, stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. This is a guy who's supposed to be the emperor of the evil faction, but he turned out to be kind of like a good guy. But Mortal Kombat is not the main topic of today, and Kodo Khan is not the main subject of our review for today, but he is here for a very specific reason. As we mentioned last week, we are doing a mini series on reviewing characters that have Native American, Native Indian, First Nation, Aboriginal origins. Last week we looked at Red Claw and Renegade and the evil buffalo monster Saber. So this week we're continuing our Native American trend, and even though Kodo Khan has a name like a Japanese crossbred with Mongolian, and he's definitely not Native American, he is designed to look like an eagle warrior from the Aztec. So I think Aztec is very close to like Native American kind of look, and it's really rare to find a character that take the Aztec look. I mean, look at this guy. He's just like the design's really cool. He's really muscular, really lean and muscular, and he's armed with a war club, and he has a stone sword on his belt over here, and he got an eagle-shaped helmet with these feathers sticking out the back of the helmet, and his whole body is covered in this tattoos. Really cool. Like this is an interesting design. Not quite Native American, but definitely Aztec. And he's made by Mesco. What's really cool about this figure is it's definitely not child safe. That this war club he has here, these jacket pieces on the side, these are sharp. Like this is, I'm not kidding you, these are like really sharp. If I grab it too hard, this is going to draw blood. This is not so much this is not so much as a toy as a miniaturized legit weapon. I can totally see using this in self-defense somehow, like a pocket knife. It's that sharp. And then he has this stone sword on his belt. If I can get it out of there. There. That is also pretty cool. He also comes with a whole bunch of extra hand, like fisted hand, clawing hand uh, options. I'm not going to show them all here, but yeah, this guy came with a lot of accessories and some very impressive weapons. And like I said, the whole design is just really cool. He also kind of looked like the ogre character in my favorite fighting game, Tekken. Uh, Although he is a little bit too small. So, opening the show was Kodo Khan. It is interesting that most often when we see Native American characters in comic book or cartoon, they are either victims or they are noble hero, they're noble warrior heroes. It's like Native American characters are not allowed to be villains or something. That is, until in an early issues of Spider-Man comic book, Spider-Man was attacked by an assassin that almost killed him, and this assassin turned out to be Native American. So the next character I'm going to show you is very unique in that he is one of the very few bad guys that was Native American. I mean, I'm surprised that Native American population didn't riot or going to go on protest because of this character. But hey, I always say that if you want media representation, then you need to take the good and the bad. You can't always be the good guys. I'm sure there has been a lot of evil Native American, just as there were a lot of noble and honorable ones. So, without further ado, here is one of the villains, although he's not really a villain. I'm going to a little bit more. This is one of the characters from the Spider-Man comic book. His name is Puma. One look at him, you know why his name is Puma. This is like, we think werewolves are cool. How about a were-jaguar? This is a guy who is transformed into this half jaguar thing, and he just look awesome. Look at that. He's got his fur. For those of you who can't see the screen like myself, he's got orange fur and and red outfit with golden armbands, and he has feathers sticking out of the back of his armband right here and back of his head. And look at that little cute little kitty face, the jaguar with big scar over his right eye, and he is very muscular. This is a very lean looking, powerful character. His name, his real name is Thomas Fireheart. Now, Thomas Fireheart started out like a lot of Native American characters. I am sorry to say, but very one-dimensional. A lot of Native American characters. Just this guy who's got some mystical animal power and stuff. But Thomas Fireheart went way beyond that. He's not only a Native American who can transform into a half jaguar thing, he is also the CEO of a very uh, successful electronic company called Fireheart Corporation. And when he's not busy making money, he spent time as a mercenary and assassin. And as I said, one of his earlier jobs was he was hired to kill Spider-Man. And the only reason he didn't end up killing Spider-Man wasn't that he wasn't capable. He almost did. But right before he could kill Spider-Man, the contract was cancelled. And as years went by, Thomas Fireheart, or aka Puma, went on sometimes fighting on the side of Spider-Man, sometimes fighting against Spider-Man. He is ruthless and he is definitely a killer. But most of the time he has this really weird code of honor that he follows because there was a time when Spider-Man's name was being smudged or smeared by some other bad guy, and Thomas Fireheart actually came out to help prove Spider-Man's innocence because of his sense of honor. Overall, this is a very cool character and very, again, relatively unknown. I'm sure most of you, unless you're a big Marvel or Spider-Man fan, you don't even recognize this guy. So it was a surprise that he was made into an action figure, and it's really well made. This guy was made by Hasbro in the Marvel Legends line, I believe, early last year, so 2019. And he is very well articulated. His head can nod up and down, turn left and right. His shoulder move in and out, up and down. His elbow move. He got this double jointed elbow that can give him like a really good range of motion. Waist, turn, ab, crunch. His legs, hips go in and out, side to side, up and down. Again with a knee, double jointed knee, and then his feet, his ankles, swivel left, right, up, down, like any pose you want an athletic were jaguar character to get into. This guy can probably do it. It's really, really cool. For a relatively lesser known character, this guy is very deep. I like this character because of how um, out of the ordinary he is. You know, he is a Native American character who was a bad guy, or more often than not, he was a bad guy, and he's he's not dirt broke. Like he's not broke like a lot of the heroes or Native American heroes. He's like really rich. He's a CEO of a company. He's very good at making money, and that he's a mercenary and assassin. And then on top of that, you know, this is a lesser known character that got made into such a good action figure. And I always have a big thing for animal, part animal action figures that werewolves, werecats, part dragon, part snakes, and stuff like that. I love characters like that. So Puma here was a very, very, very welcome surprise. I know a lot of people who don't know this character, probably think, I don't want to buy that guy. I don't know who that guy is. But it's really cool. It's really cool to get a character in on a shelf that is full of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, all those common stuff, and then suddenly you come across someone like, oh, who's this guy? Who's this kitty cat? That's just really cool. And he's also really well balanced. I mean, look at how deep I have him squatting, and he can balance like that. Most action figures have problem. Most action figures tip over. So he's really well articulated, and he can definitely hold his balance. That's really good. And if you are a cat figure, if you're a cat character, you have to have good balance, right? Now I don't know if you guys noticed one common denomination from last week and this week between Ripclaw and Renegade from last week, and then this week we have Puma and Kodo Khan. They all look different. They all have different powers, but they all have one common trait. All four of these guys that we've shown this far are extremely muscly dude. They're like very muscular, very ripped. That's like solid, big chest, big arm, big shoulders. But the guy I'm going to show you next is going to put all of them to shame. This is going to be the last Native American character we are going to show in this mini series. Next week we'll look at something else. And this is going to be one, well, excuse me, I just have to say it. This is going to be one big Indian. This guy probably will be recognized by a lot of people who grew up in my generation. His name is Thunderhawk, or T-Hawk, as he's more commonly known. He is from the early 1990s, I believe 1992, Super Street Fighter 2. Uh, Why was that super? Basically, they took Street Fighter 2 and added four new characters to it and repackaged it and released it. Um, yeah, back then they could get away with that. I can just imagine, if nowadays they try to take a new video game and just add four more characters and resell it, people would have a bird with that. But anyway, one of the new four new characters was Thunderhawk. Thunderhawk is a giant uh, Native American. Well, actually, he's like Native Mexican. He's a Mexican Indian. Uh, I don't remember what they're called, mestizo or something like that. But he's a Mexican Indian warrior. And look at the size of this guy. He is really well made. He was made by Sota in the early 2000s, I believe 2002. He stands almost 8 inches tall. Now, that's a little bit too big because in his biography he's only 7 foot 6. Only 7 foot 6. That's still one big Indian. I'm sorry, I just have to keep saying that because he is. He is massive. Um, and he is really, really well made. Like, I don't know. I hope you guys can see on the camera. This guy has the best looking hands, the most well made hands on any action figure. Look at the wrinkles on his palm and the back of his hand. Look at the veins, the bone structure. Like, these are some really well made, really detailed human hands. Really cool. He's wearing blue jeans and a denim vest with fringes on the cuff of his jeans and the side of his vest. And he got a white armband, and he has a headband. His long hair is pulled back. His headband has feathers sticking out of it on the side. And he's got a hawk symbol on his belt. Hopefully you guys can see it. And he's got some thick boots on his feet. In another word, Thunderhawk dressed like a lot of people you can see on the street. A lot of like uh, people on reservation you can see on the street. He's not in spandex. He's not like wearing war paint all over the place. He's not like covered in mystical tattoos. He just like look a huge guy, but he's kind of normal looking, and I like that. I like that in the character because I think we are bombarded with a lot of over the top design nowadays, and once in a while it's nice to see a character that is normal. You know, like you can imagine seeing this guy walking down the street, walking into Walmart. Maybe, you know, he's huge, but he's not out of the question. And even though he's dressed up in like normal, ordinary clothes, you can still tell how bulky he is, how muscular this guy is. That's another thing that I really enjoy in a character, an action figure. Uh, sometimes you get tired of looking at all the spandex and bare chest, and I think when an action figure maker can make an action figure that's wearing normal everyday clothes and their muscles, their musculature can still show through that. I think that is like a true mark of a good action figure maker. These materials on him, the fringes on his vest, the fringes on his pants, all the layers of materials is also very distinct. Like to my finger, there's no question that where is what piece of clothing and stuff like that. All the textures are really well mapped out. And he has his pet Hawk sitting on his shoulder. I don't know how much you guys can see the hawk, but even the feather details on that hawk is like a piece of art. This entire action figure of Thunderhawk is like a piece of art. So who is this giant Mexican Indian guy? Well, his story is very simple, so nothing complicated like Kodo Khan. It is said that Thunderhawk is the biggest warrior in his tribe, but despite of his giant size, he is very often able to defeat warriors smaller and faster than he is. One day, he heard that him and his people are being thrown off of his land, their land, by the evil corporation called Shadowloo. So, filled with rage, Thunderhawk decided to join the Street Fighter tournament because he thought if he won the tournament, he could have enough money to win back the land for his people. So this is a more generic, more traditional uh, Native American, or actually I keep saying Native American, but he's a Mexican Indian. Uh, More generic, traditional Indian story and character. Honestly, when I played Super Street Fighter 2, I didn't care for Thunderhawk as a character because he was really boring. Like he's this big guy that just like smacked people, and like he didn't have fancy moves. He didn't have some cool effect. He just like really big and he hit really hard and that was it. And he didn't really say a lot. He was a really quiet character. Even in the cartoon, the only time we saw him in the cartoon was him challenging the hero of the series, Ryu, to a fight, and I think it was Ryu or was it Ken? Anyway, he challenged one of the main heroes and then quickly got owned, and that was it. So he was a very underrepresented character, but holy cow, what did he ever make a good action figure? Like this action figure is again I'll say it, it's like a piece of art with the texture on his clothes, the weaving. You probably won't be able to see it, but even all the little tiny stitchings on his leather boots are sculpted in there. Just really, really cool. And just to give you a sense of how big he is, I'm going to bring Puma back into the frame so you guys can see. Now, I forgot to mention how big Puma is supposed to be. In the story, Puma is 240 pounds and 6 foot 2. Okay? 240 pounds, 6 foot 2. That's a big guy. That's a really big guy. But standing next to Thunderhawk, look at, look at that. Hey, little guy, what's up? Literally, like Thunderhawk is like twice the size of Puma. So with that interesting little comparison, we wrap up our Native American series where we give some love to Native American, Indian themed action figure and characters. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night and happy Thanksgiving.